Welcome. Happy New Year for those who haven't said Happy New Year to yet. Today we are talking about um, how to cast spells using VQGAN, or basically just how to make strange AI GAN generated art using some tools that are pretty widely available now and free to use. And I'll show you how to use one iteration or version of kind of what's been put out there so far. And I'll show you a tool, like some of the kind of like higher level, more user friendly tools that exist now in case you don't want to mess with all this kind of crazy shit. But in case you're the kind of like person who wants to dig into things and kind of get into the nitty gritty of how some of this stuff works and get a little bit more customizability out of it, that's what this is for you. This kind of or this workshop. What I'm not planning on going into super deeply is how GANs work, what GANs are. Um, I mean, even for me, like I can explain it at a high level, but this is kind of like more about the application of a very particular GAN called VQGAN, and how it's being used to kind of generate all kinds of generative art now. So we'll use a couple tools that maybe you're familiar with, maybe you're not, and if you're not, no problem. Everything is pretty much set up so that you can kind of click and play. So we'll start with a couple docs and things that I've shared with the group. You can find it in the chat. So Mochi Town chat is our stage chat. If you want to do some chatter in there, but I've shared two links. The first one is the one that you see on the screen right now that I'm screen sharing, and that is a Figma board where it's going to have all the instructions for how to get this thing running. So if you want to open that, or you could just follow along, I'll show you how it works. And then the second one is a Colab notebook, and Colab notebooks are, if you're not familiar, kind of like the way that people share code for whatever kind of strange, interesting, experiments they're running using some of these AI kind of workflows. Some of them are GAN, some of them are, some of them have to do with image synthesis. You'll see if you start like getting into this world that there's just like so many Colab notebooks because people are really trying to share what they're working on and how they're using different AIs to do different things. This one specifically is more about image synthesis, but you'll find all kinds of ones. Some related to speech synthesis, some related to just like simple resizing, like upsampling photos that are very low quality into like really high res, like good quality, just using AI. So this Colab notebook that I shared, let's see, notebook loading error. I wonder if I need to make it open. Let me try sharing it again.
It's okay if not. You can just go through it on your thing. We can figure it out later.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of want to make sure that you can use this, um, because it would be good if we could just run it in tandem. Let me see here. Um, how do I share a version of this? Oh, you know what? I think I have to. Let me save a copy of my drive, and then I'll share that one. There we go. Share with Mochi. Thanks for your patience. Let me just copy this link. I'll post that here. Try that one. Let me know if that works. Let's make sure it works before I go into what the hell it is, I guess. But yeah, notebooks are um, a way to share. Well, this in particular is like getting mostly Python code. So if you're familiar with Jupyter Notebook, it's basically a Google's hosted version of Jupyter Notebooks. Does that one work, Whaley?
Um, it got closer. I requested access for it.
Okay. If anybody else has issues with that, just request access for it, and I'll set you up. strange. I sent to anybody with the link, but it didn't. Let me try it again. Okay, it should be totally open now. Sorry, clearly I don't understand how Google links. It's totally open, so you should be able to open it. Let me know if not. But then we'll quickly, then we can get into how this works. And if not, for some reason, that's okay. I'll make sure that it works afterwards. It should open now, but we can just go through it on Figma, and I'll kind of walk you through how notebooks are. All right, cool. Sweet. Glad it's working. So how this notebook is set up. There's kind of a lot on it, and again, it's because this is like a notebook that's just filled with code that you kind of have to click and run sequentially. And what I've tried to do on the Figma is just annotate where you really have to pay attention and like what you can, what you kind of need to run and what you don't need to pay attention to. So the way that it's set up is everything that you have on your right pane is going to be like blocks of code. So each little thing here, if you see with kind of like in its own little box, it's going to have a play button, and you'll see some of them have descriptions, some of them don't. But the play button basically runs the code, and then it kind of does its thing, and then it moves on to the next thing sequentially. And in order of what's happening here, basically what we're going to do is we're going to allow this notebook to connect to your Google Drive so that you can kind of create and store files as you're making things, and so that you can save and have some kind of persistence in when you're running these generations. Sometimes you'll be running generations and they take a long time, and you step away from your computer. You want to make sure that it's saving somewhere. So it's basically how these notebooks work. It's like they're pre-filled with code. You don't really have to change anything apart from the things that you want to customize and the prompts that you want to engineer. But otherwise, everything is just kind of clicking to play and like letting it run. So this first one basically connects your Google Drive to this Colab notebook. So all you got to do is press play. And do you guys see if I switch tabs? Does it stay on the one tab? Or
Yeah. Well, it switches.
It switched.
Okay, good, cool. So you'll see here that play button. Let me see if I can just actually. I'm going to disconnect and like run this as if it's fresh. Not sure if it will. Yeah. Okay. Connect. And there's a lot of little quirks here that I won't go too into, but we can talk about it at the end if we have time. But so anyways, now I'm connected. You can tell that you're connected by seeing this. So that this means that it's given me a machine that has that amount of RAM available. So I'm going to go ahead and connect this, press this play button. So this notebook was not authored. Yes, we know. I'm going to open this pane here so that we can see. And then if you're doing this for the first time, it didn't do it because I just ran this notebook half an hour ago just to test it. It's going to pop up a screen that'll take you to authenticate. You basically log in with your Google account. It'll give you a code. You just take that code, you bring it back, and you paste it in here. And that will, again, connect it to your drive. And then your drive should pop up here on the left side under Google Drive, and then you'll see kind of like the file structure. So here's the file structure: content, G drive, my drive. And what it does is it sets your working directory, your folder that it's going to be saving stuff, to this last folder. And I've just created this folder in my drive called VQGAN. So that's going to be the folder where all the VQGAN stuff outputs. So now it's connected. These next two things you can skip. I'm going to go back to here. You can skip these two things. Like I said, you can see that your drive will kind of show that it's connected here. And then this next one, this NVIDIA SMI one, you hit play on that, and it's going to run this thing here. And it'll show you the kind of GPU that Colab has given you. So again, Colab is like a cloud GPU service that Google offers. And they basically have a bunch of GPUs in a farm that it's like they're loaning out to people to use for machine learning, crunching data, you name it. They just like let you rent it, and they let you rent them for free actually. Um, so if you're on the free version, which my Mochi account is on free, it's not going to give you the greatest GPU, but you're still going to get a GPU that can run this, which is really nice. So this Tesla T4 is one of the lowest kind of caliber um, GPUs that they'll give you, but it still works. It's okay. It's just not going to be the fastest one. They kind of go up in order. I think after T4s, it's P100s, and then like the highest tiers V100s, and those are super fast. But you only get them if you're lucky. Most of the times, if you're not paying for Colab, you're going to get like a T4, like a K80. But a T4 is fine, and if you don't get the T4, you get something less than the T4, you can just refresh your page and then try to connect again, and it's kind of like a lottery. It just randomly assigns you, and so eventually you'll get a T4. Okay, so now that you know what GPU you have, the next couple things you don't really need to pay attention to. It's like kind of too low level. You can just keep these things as default. You hit play on this one, it's just going to install a bunch of libraries that allows this notebook to run. You hit play on the next one, and this downloads the model that you're going to be using, the model of VQGAN that you're going to be using. So just very high level, VQGAN is like a generative adversarial network that's been trained on millions of photos. And depending on the model, it's been trained on a different set of photos. So there's a couple different models. The one that I use for pretty much all of my generations is the 16:384 one. There's a different one, like the WikiArt one, and that one has been trained on a corpus of like just fine art. So if you're like wanting to do a generation for like some fine art, your prompt is like based around fine art, you can try it out. But to be honest with you, I've played around with these. I've spent so many hours trying to like tweak and pick, the perfect one or whatever. And honestly, I don't even bother with it anymore. I just default to this ImageNet 16384. So you don't have to change anything. Just hit play. It'll start downloading. And then moving on, you'll hit play on this next one right underneath. It's kind of small, you might miss it. That's why I broke it out by itself, but it'll load all the libraries and definitions after that. So that's pretty much all just getting set up. So you hit play and like it does its thing, and you pretty much don't have to do anything. Now comes the stage where you actually have to think about what it is that you're making and configure the thing that you want to make. So let me take a step back again and talk a little bit about how VQGAN works and why it's special. So VQGAN, again, has been trained on a set of millions of images. And what somebody had the interesting idea to do was pair that AI with another AI that basically can associate words with pictures. So like it's learned how to like take an input as a word and go, okay, I know what that is. I'll go associate it with this kind of image, right? So they pair these things together, and now you have the combination of VQGAN and CLIP, which allows you to basically type in text and describe what it is you're trying to make. And then it takes it and, the GANs will work together and basically try to figure out what it is you're trying to paint, right? So you can give it any number of inputs, and it will try to give you an output that matches not only the subject and content of what you're making, so like a mountain, for example, or a mushroom, or a tree. It also understands style. So when you say like a tree in the style of Salvador Dali, it understands that. Or if you go a rock in the style of Picasso, it will understand that. Or you don't even have to use the artist. You could use the style that they are famous for. You could say like a cubist sprite can, for example. So that's this first text prompt here in the parameters. Again, this is going to be where you do most of your customization, with this first one being kind of the most important one. So this is where you define what it is you're trying to get the AI to make. Now, kind of having a blank canvas is a bit intimidating. So, maybe you come into this with an idea of something you want to make. Like, for the zine, I was just like, okay, I took people's text. I took different excerpts from people's text, like the things that they wrote for the zine or the things that they drew. and I came up with a prompt and I fed it into it and tried to get a particular style. But say you're coming into this with nothing in mind and you kind of just want to play around with some things. Here is what I'm calling like a secret spell book of sorts that helps you envision and visualize some of the outputs that are possible just by using different kind of clever prompts. So if you look at here, you'll see across the x-axis, you have the subject matter, right? A mushroom, a spaceship, a volcano, a Victorian house on a hill, which is, very specific. On the y-axis, you have the style, right? So the way to read this is a mushroom masterpiece, or a Fauvist mushroom, or a mushroom shot on 70 millimeter, right? And I mean, just look at how many different combinations this thing can make. It's kind of incredible. Like we have basically an artist that can kind of do, whatever subject matter you have in the style, in any particular style. So, for example, if you wanted to do a mushroom in the style of Picasso, that's the thing that you would write. You would say mushroom drawn by, painted by Picasso, and here we have a Picasso style mushroom. And sometimes it will even try to sign it because, again, like this thing has just like looked at many paintings done by Picasso and realizes that Picasso would sign in a particular way, and it'll try and make that as well. So that's a pretty obvious example. Let me try and find one that's like not super obvious. Like there's some crazy ones like mushroom. Here's a really fun one, like mushroom as a child's drawing, or a spaceship as a child's drawing. So it has even this understanding of like how do children draw, right? Let's see if I can find another one. There's a really funny one of like paper clips. It's like a mushroom made of paper clips, or like a Victorian house made of paper clips. I'm trying to find it. This isn't in any kind of sensible order, but you should, just from looking at this, get a sense of like what it's able to do. And these are kind of like art, more like fine art, or kind of like deviant art style things, but it can even do hyper realistic kind of attempts at drawing or painting. Let me see if I can find any. Oh, here we go. This is a fun one. So mushrooms made of beads and yarn. A Victorian house made of beads and yarn, made of feathers, made of crystals, made of liquid metal, made of glass. So, you can give it materials, you can give it styles, you can give it 3D programs even. One of the hacks that, some people were really promoting when this stuff was just coming out was like, you would just type anything that you wanted, like, a MacBook Pro on a table, and then just attach to it rendered in Unreal Engine, and it would make these like hyper realistic kind of like 3D models or renderings of whatever it is, the MacBook or something like that. So as you go through this is kind of like an endless rabbit hole. Like here's one like rendered in Cinema 4D, rendered in Maya. You're gonna, if you get into this at all, you're kind of going to get lost in like just trying everything because it's fun. So that's why I'm calling it like a spell book. You can kind of like come up with different words to cast different spells on the image that you're trying to get. And sometimes you get some magic. Sometimes it's just like, you get an explosion, cartoon explosion in your face, and it's just garbage. But every so often you'll hit one and you'll go, wow, that's like, I could have never come up with that. And that's amazing. And that's what keeps you coming back to this, honestly. It's so fun to make stuff with this. So that prompt engineering part is a whole science in and of itself. I'm not going to go deeper than that. I included that there so that, in the event that you're playing around with this, you want to, start making some of that stuff. You can reference that to, help, I guess, modify the way that you're inputting things. But so that's where you're going to input the text prompt. Another thing that I'll say as kind of like a small pro tip is like the less is more. When you start putting like super long sentences into this thing, it doesn't really know where to focus its attention. So the more descriptive and dense you can make your prompts, the better the output you're going to get. Also, the order of your words matter. So you can, this is a bit more advanced, but you can actually weight the amount of attention the AI puts on any particular word or set of words. But I'll just say generally the order of the words matter. So if like you try something and you don't really like it, try flipping the words. You might get something different. Um, so, so yeah, this is a whole art in and of itself. You're gonna find your own way of doing this. So let's just move on, and we can try some stuff out together later. Next couple things, height and width. So this is why you want to check your GPU. So the better GPUs have more VRAM, and the more VRAM that you have, the faster your generations go, and the bigger that they can be. If you don't have a great GPU, you can't really do fast generations, and you can't really do high resolution. That's okay, because you don't have to be doing this stuff at 1080p. You don't have to be doing it at 4K. In fact, it's kind of a waste of time. It just takes longer, and like, the real I think the best way to do these is to do as many generations as possible on a short time scale. Because if you do something for like that takes several days to run, and then at the end of it you're like, oh, I don't like that, you've wasted several days, right? You want to do just kind of short iterations on small resolution. So I would recommend not going over half of HD. So I do a lot of my generations for mobile. And mobile can do full HD, right? But like, it's kind of like the flipped version of 1080p. So what I'll do is usually of um, half of the resolution for that particular one. So in the case of 1080p, it's 1920 by 1080. So you just divide those two in half. So it's 960 by 540. And depending if this is going on mobile or if it's just going to stay on your computer, play with the height and width. But that's basically how you want to chop it up and keep it small so that these things can go fast and that you can do more of them. The model, again, it's going to be that 16384. You don't really have to change that. If you do have a different model that you downloaded, you can select it here, toggle interval, keep it the same, 1. Next two things, initial images and target images. Something else you can do is you can feed it an image at the very beginning that it starts at, and then it will continue its generations from there. If you don't feed it an initial image, it just starts from noise. So basically what it does is it creates like a noise map from like using a random number, just like a bunch of speckles and different colors and stuff, and then it tries to create something out of that. You don't have to start from the noise map. You can give it an initial image, and I'll show you really quickly that I did. Well, you can see down here, I fed it this image of Professor Mochi down there. You can give it an initial image, and it'll start there, and it'll start doing its generations. On the flip side, you can also give it a target image, which is an image that you want it to head towards. So rather than starting with an image and like letting it kind of like do iterations over it and find something new, you can give it an image that you want it to start from 0 and work towards, which is much more difficult. Actually, it has to have like a lot more iterations. We're not going to be able to do that on a scale of like 50 iterations or whatever we're doing this at. But if you have more time and you want to experiment with that, it's kind of interesting. You can like give it the destination, and it'll do its best to try and get there in the style that you give it. Okay, so that's initial image and that's target image. The next thing we have is seed. So seed is just a random number that it uses to kind of generate the noise map and stuff. -1 randomizes it every time. You can type in your own random number here if you want, if you're the kind of like, you like to pick your lottery ticket kind of person vibe. And also, if you do a generation, it'll spit out the seed number that it uses. If you like that seed number, if you think it's lucky or you think it's special or whatever, you can take that and you can reuse it to rerun a generation again, and it's not fully deterministic, but it's like semi-deterministic. If you use the same seed number and the same kind of set of inputs, it will kind of get to the same place that it did before. But you can also use it for different prompts and stuff if you just like the way that it proceeded from there. I've used the seed number, I've reused the seed number for different kinds of prompts, and like, you know, found seed numbers that like I tend to like a lot of the outputs that they produce. So there's something strange to seed numbers. I don't know, it might just be hocus pocus, you know, mumbo jumbo, but you can save it and reuse it here. Otherwise, just use -1. It'll be random. Okay, so that's the easy stuff to configure. Um, the next step is going to be, it's going to depend on the outcome or the output that you ultimately want. If you're just using this to make pictures, it doesn't really matter, right? You're just kind of looking for the frame that, you know, most best represents what it is that you're going for. But if you're trying to make a video, you're trying to make an animation, the amount of frames and the amount of iterations that you do per frame will kind of matter. Because if you, for example, want to make a 30-second video, you need to have a certain amount of frames to make that 30-second video, because video is basically, you know, a bunch of frames being thrown at you on a kind of micro time scale. You know, the average kind of video is like a 30 frame per second video. So you have to have a frame, you have to have 30 frames basically to produce a second of video. I'm just going to assume for now that we're just doing this to make images. But if you do want to make videos that later you can kind of like watch the generation kind of come to life, these are the calculations that you'll use. And I've tried to do somewhat of a not so crazy job of like linking, showing you where these things kind of feed into. But you know, so like you kind of just take, how long do I want this video to be? Start with generally just like 15 frames per second, because later on, as you're doing post-processing, you're going to want to speed this up by doubling it or quadrupling it, and this is going to get you up to like 30 or 60 frames per second. But just use this calculation later on. I won't go into this because it's not super pertinent to like just generating images. Over here, I have instructions for basically how to input your path for initial images and target images. I'll show you how we do that in a second. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's do a generation. All this stuff sounds probably like just crazy nonsense, but better if we actually do one together. So let's try. I'm going to connect to this notebook. Oops, I have too many going on. Let me terminate that one. And then try and reconnect. Alright, so that's connected. I'm going to go ahead and just connect to my Google Drive. There it goes. Okay. Continue. So I'm just going to let it play for a second. While this is going, are there any questions out there? I know I went through that kind of fast, but I think it's going to make more sense while we go through it together.
I wasn't here for the beginning, but did you say where you can find this notebook? Like where it's...
Yeah, it's in the Mochi Town chat.
It is. Okay, cool.
Yeah, the second one, because the first one I think is... Yeah. So yeah, it'll be good for you to have it up if you want to run this at the same time. So okay, that's connected. We'll just go ahead and check what GPU we have. So Tesla T4, not great, but it'll work. We're just going to install all the libraries. You can also like hit play on like, you know, lower level blocks of code. Just know that they're not going to execute until the one preceding it is done. And like, you know, you'll see this one is like kind of downloading some stuff. It'll take a little bit, but it won't take that long because their connections are pretty snappy. But I do recommend running everything sequentially, like one by one, not jumping around and like hitting play in random places, because oftentimes the way that these notebooks work is like it's updating certain settings again sequentially. So if you go out of order, you may miss a package, you may miss installing, you know, any number of things that are required to get the thing running. So definitely don't skip steps. If the thing is erroring out and it's not working, it's because you're probably skipping steps. So now that one's done. This one is downloading the ImageNet 163384 GAN. That should be done in about a minute. So while that's working, we can do a generation. So I have a couple things already set up. I have an initial image. We could even make it the target image. And we could also just not use it at all. We could just try and come up with something totally random. Maybe here, I'll open up this page so we can get some ideas. Maybe if you guys have this open too, shout out some things you want to see. We can just type it in and see what comes up. Here, let me zoom out. So let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Which column, 1 through 9, should we pick?
7.
7. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So we're on this one, and I'm just gonna do this and tell me when to stop.
What?
We'll try to randomly do. I don't know.
Stop.
Okay.
I
Stop.
like the top area where it's kind of pink.
This one?
Yeah, like that area where the things are pinker.
The vaporwave one?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So we'll do vaporwave style. Somebody else give us a subject that's not on here. Let's not do a mushroom or a mountain or anything like that. Something else.
A butterfly.
A vaporwave butterfly. Okay. All right. So. And I'll show you. I guess this prompt. Vaporwave butterfly. So this is where it kind of gets esoteric and strange and weird. Some people have their own ways of kind of nudging it in the direction of the style that they want. And they'll put things like this, like such a beautiful and detailed masterpiece, realistic matte painting ZBrush. Because the combinations will sometimes produce a particular style that you like. And then once you come up with like a string or, like I like to call it a spell that you like, you kind of just attach it to all of the things that you're trying to make. So this is one. I'm going to take this out for now because we don't need it, but maybe we might want to try running this again later on using that to just see what the difference is. Well, let's just start with that one. I think I'm using the wrong one. Yeah, sorry, I have two of these open. Just close that. Yeah, leave. Thank you. All right. So vaporwave butterfly. I'm gonna get rid of Professor Mochi for now. We're gonna leave all this stuff standard. Something else that I didn't cover, and that we can cover maybe if people are really interested in this, is like animations and movement. You can actually make like the camera move, and like depending on how it moves, it changes the generation as well. It's kind of complex, and you have to like really like play with it to figure out how it works. So I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm going to add, and that's just going to. Okay, looks like we're good. This is all loaded. Okay, so I'm just going to hit play on here. So this updates the parameters, make sure the program knows that that's what we want this time. This one just clears the folder, make sure it's empty, and then now we just hit play, and that's going to run. So let's see here. So let me see how many iterations. So this is doing 10 iterations for frames, and it's going to do 50 frames each. So I'll show you how to interpret this as it's going. So over here, you'll see it shows you the seed that it's using. We picked -1. So this is the random seed that it used. So let's say we like what it comes out with. You can save this seed and you can reuse it again for something later. Oh no, why is it downloading this again? It's strange. Maybe because I'm using this. Let's see. I'll give that a minute. Let me check the chat if there's any questions. Does this really count?
My mom wants to know if yeah, my mom is Ashley, everyone. She wants to know if this really counts as art.
That is a good question. So Everybody will give you a different answer about this. There are things like there are things that I'll show you that that people have made, and you can kind of go, I don't know if that counts because like they've completely automated everything. They've like taken out the person from like sitting here and trying to figure out what it is you're trying to make, which arguably is not art, but depends on your definition. My personal experience with this is I feel like I am collaborating with something like intelligent in like the the weirdest, craziest kind of like deepest times with like working with this software. I've almost felt like I'm communing with something divine. Like it outputs something that reflects something in my life that I was not necessarily trying to get out of it, but it somehow pulls it out of the ether and makes it out of what is seemingly noise and static and nonsense. um, I've gotten some really crazy, interesting outputs out of just like sitting here and working with it. So it feels more akin to working with like a really talented collaborator or like an artist doing a collab with an artist than it does me just like saying this because yes, it's like it's automatically generating things, it's painting for you, so on and so forth. But you're not going to like 95 to 98% of what it comes out with. And if you look at what people are sharing out in Twitter, and some people are just like printing these out basically and selling them as NFTs. A lot of the stuff that come out, like I'm not, it's not interesting art to me. It's impressive that something made it, but for me, it doesn't speak to me. But I've been able to get things out of this that are artistically and spiritually meaningful for me. So I guess in that sense, it passes the test.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Works. Then it's art.
And then what's a GPU? Graphics processing unit. So that's a GPU is basically the thing that helps you see videos, helps you run programs. If you play video games, it's if you have a really nice GPU, it lets you play video games really fast. So, oh no, this doesn't work. Oh, you know why? It's because I have this T4 GPU. So I have a kind of a wimpy GPU right now, and I don't think it can handle this resolution. So this is a good troubleshooting thing. You're going to see this sometimes. For those who are watching, this runtime error, I should actually just copy this and paste it in here so that you remember it. CUDA out of error. So CUDA is like it's like an NVIDIA GPU thing. You'll see these like CUDA cores. I'll clean this up later. But basically what's happened here is I've tried to do a generation that's bigger than what can, in terms of like resolution, bigger than what this GPU can handle. Because like I said, this T4, not the best GPU. So I had this at half 1080p and it couldn't even handle that. So now I've just slimmed it down to 500 by 500, and let's see if that fixes it. Hopefully it does. Oh, guess it didn't. Strange. Let me try something else. Let's try going even lower. Doing it live, people. Okay. That should, let's see what happens. Okay, so that's working. So even 500 by 500 was too much. Okay, so now you can see this, it's going up. That's iteration number 1. This one that's counting up to, it's technically counting up to 10 because it's doing 10 iterations per frame. This I colon is the number of the frame that you're on. So it's on the 3rd frame, and for every frame it's doing 10. So if 50 frames is ultimately what we're going towards, it's going to do 10 iterations per frame, so 500 iterations total. And you'll see it's kind of, it starts from noise, this kind of like just noisy pink photo. And every 10 iterations, it's going to output a new frame for you. So there it goes. And it's going to slowly just iterate over and over and over again until we get to 50. So just let that run for a second. Another thing to note is this size of the canvas that you give it does matter. It's hard to describe how much really it kind of matters, but if you give it more space, it kind of has to like focus its attention in specific places. And sometimes that can lead to interesting, more abstract outputs if that's what you're going for. But sometimes if that's not what you're going for, giving it too much space may not result in something that you're interested in. So that's something to be aware of. Let me see what other things can I, little tidbits I can give you. So vaporwave butterfly, it's pretty light. So another thing that you can do here, and I'll do it on a different one so that we don't mess this one up. It's going. This is kind of like a more advanced thing, but you can actually tell it. I was saying earlier, you can weight certain prompts so that it focuses a little bit more on something versus another one, another thing. So the way that you do that is I believe it's like this. I think you do like Apple, and then you go like 50. And then you do what's a pipe, basically, and then you do like orange 50, and that should give. I think that's how it does it, or it might be like this. Actually, it's like this. Yeah. So it'll understand that it wants an apple. 50% of it should be an apple, and then 50% of it should be an orange. It's not going to make a half apple, half orange. It's going to interpret this in whatever way it wants. But you can also do apple in the style of Dali 50. You could do orange in the style of Monet, for example. You can also do rendered in Cinema 40, something like that. You can like make this like 33, 33. So that's basically going to show you how it weights things, and you can split it up evenly. You can make it so that it focuses predominantly on the first thing and like not so much on the second thing. Again, it's all experimentation, so you're gonna have to kind of just play around with it, see what it comes up with. So here we go. We're on iteration number 41, and it's starting to look kind of like a butterfly. Yeah, we have a definite butterfly shape in here, and it's definitely got the vaporwave kind of colors, and it's got the vaporwave kind of like Miami palm tree vibe going on. It's got the blue kind of like hazy / sun-kissed background going on, and yeah. So this one, it's kind of looks more like a crumpled napkin than it does a butterfly, but it definitely has the butterfly shape, right? So it's going to keep on going. We're going to hit 50 pretty soon here, and 50 is pretty low. So here's another thing that we'll kind of talk about is the longer you kind of give it, the more detailed the output is going to be. It'll tend to converge on a specific kind of shape. Like, it's not going to like produce 50 frames and then go in a totally new direction. It's kind of narrowing its scope in terms of what it's making as the iterations go on. It's just going to get more and more refined and more detailed as time goes on. It's not always the case. It's mostly the case. Sometimes it like, it'll just glom onto one particular detail, and then, it'll just kind of like go off and, in a particular direction that, in the same way that an artist would, I guess. So this is the 50th output, and it's done. So it's done running, and you might not like the last one. Maybe you like the 30th one. Let's go see what the 30th one. Maybe that one looks more like a butterfly. So yeah, it's a little bit of a softer butterfly. This one's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting. It seems a little bit more detailed so you'll see it like kind of fluctuates in between. It fluctuates in and out. So this is going to save again in steps of your VQGAN folder. So you have all of your frames here. So in case you liked 32, you can just go in here and you can download it and save it. Or you can just right click it and save it like a normal person. But yeah, so that's all 50 frames. Now what do you do? There's this thing that sometimes works and sometimes does not work, so I'm not going to use it right now. But what you can do, like I said, is you can make a video of your output, and it's basically going to start from frame 0 and go all the way to your last frame. So your init frame is going to be 0. Your last frame is going to be the number of frames you generated plus 1. So we did 50 plus 1. That's 51. And I annotated all this in the Figma in case you forget, so don't worry about it. And the last thing is frames per second. So again, frames per second is the amount of frames that gets condensed and shown to the viewer within a second. So we did 50 frames. If we do 10 frames per second, which is a little bit, it's a lot less than what we typically watch videos at. But it's fine. It's going to give us 5 seconds. So like if we have 50 total frames divided by 10 frames per second, that gives us 5 seconds. So we'll go ahead and play. This is just going to create a video for us. And you can imagine, it took a little bit, not too long to generate 50 frames, and it's something very small. But once you start getting on, like, I'm trying to make a video that's a minute long, 5 minutes long, you can see how these things can kind of take a while. So there you go. So the video is ready, and then you can preview it here. And there you go. That's it. Dreaming up a butterfly for us. And then you can download the video if you want. There's some other advanced stuff here, and this notebook again is not set up to do this appropriately, but there's some post-processing things that you might want to do, which is like you might want to increase the resolution, because again we're doing it at a kind of like a limited resolution based on the GPU that we get. You want to upscale it so that it's a bigger, prettier video. That's one thing. And then the second thing you can do is you can actually interpolate the video, which means like you create a bunch of extra frames in between to like make it smoother. So you can kind of see that this output is a bit jaggedy. It's like not super smooth. If you interpolate it, it'll make it feel more organic and smooth. It basically stretches out the video into kind of a bit more slow-mo. So it adds more frames basically to smooth the animation out. So this is our vaporwave butterfly. So that's just vaporwave butterfly. If we ran this again, it would come up with something different. What I want to try now is let's try and add this. Little input here and see what it does to this. So vaporwave butterfly. Such a beautiful and detailed masterpiece, realistic matte painting ZBrush. I'll hit play, and then we'll do the run again. So something that I noted in the notebook or in the Figma file, but I didn't mention on here, is anytime you update the parameters, always hit play, because it updates. It updates the program to understand that you want to do a different configuration. There's nothing worse than like doing that and then running the generation thinking that you did that, and then like waiting a couple hours and realizing you ran the same prompt because you didn't update the parameters. So make sure you always update the parameter, hit the play button on the parameters before you do the run, just to make sure that it's updated. So okay, so here we go. So you can already see that the style of output is changed dramatically as a result of adding this little kind of like such a beautiful detailed masterpiece thing to the end of it. And this is something I actually learned from a collaborator, that the person who helped make a custom notebook for me when I was making my GAN art at the end of last year for the zine. So that was something that I saw him just attaching to his generations, and I was just like, okay, what if I just start attaching that to some stuff? And it's kind of a cool hack. It's shortened because his was actually much longer. There's all these like little inputs that he puts in there, and it's crazy the amount of like tests and experiments that this guy's run. But you can see like it produces kind of like this almost sci-fi. Now it's creating this like sci-fi. You can see there's like clouds and a sky, and there's like this mountain range slash like waterfall thing going on in the background, and we're starting to see not so much a single butterfly, but multiple butterfly wings that are kind of like, they're kind of blending into the scenery kind of. So what it's kind of doing now is it's like it's created a like a pond with like a mountain range in the background, and the sky is probably the most coherent thing so far. And then the butterfly wings are just kind of like almost like paintbrush swipes on the screen. So we'll let that run for a bit, and we'll see where that goes. Okay, so that's like this crazy notebook thing, and you'll see that this is just one of like maybe hundreds of VQGAN notebooks that exist out there. Everybody makes their own personal kind of like flavor of it, and they can all do different kinds of things. But this is kind of what you can do with this one. This was an example of an output that I did with, I fed it the Professor Mochi image, and I said, Professor Mochi, a Mochi professor in the style of Joaquin Sorolla, who is a Spanish Impressionist painter that I discovered at the end of last year when I went and visited Kyle in Madrid. And it made this. You can see it like deconstructed the Mochi. It left one of its eyeglasses, and then it started making a real professor in the background. So kind of cool. Here are some pro tips. Like I said, you can save your seed. Anytime you change your parameters, make sure that you press this play button. But let's say that you don't want to deal with all this noise. Say you're like, fuck that. That's like way too complicated. I don't want to deal with that. There are apps now that let you use VQGAN without putting much effort at all, really. We can just use this app, and you enter a prompt, and you say a vaporwave butterfly, and you can pick the style. Let's do mystical, and then you just hit create, and it does the same thing. It's like a lot less messy, but what you're trading here is customizability and control, because it already just predefines the art style for you here, and yeah, so it's going to limit you in terms of what you can do. I don't think this is actually running because I had this problem earlier. Let me try refreshing. Butterfly. Let's try that, and then let's try mystical again. Let's see if that runs. So this one is called. Oh, there it goes. Okay. It runs faster too. I think they're running their own GPUs in the back end here. It's probably not Colab, but it's doing the same thing. It's using the same GAN, and it's very quick. So not there's, you kind of tell there's a butterfly thing going on there, but it's more about the colors and stuff on this one. And also this application is letting you mint this as an NFT soon, and you can also order a print. You can save and publish it. So they kind of provide a more slick interface for you to basically play with VQGAN. Another one that I'll show you that is a more NFT project, and this is kind of going in the territory of, is this like which part of this is the art? I would argue probably not the pieces that it's making, more so that this is a project that completely runs on its own. So Bato is an NFT project that is, calls itself a decentralized artist that will take inputs from the community. If you own like Bato token, you can vote on certain things, and it will make art, and then you can vote on the art that you think should get sold. If that art gets sold, that money comes back to the community. They use it to buy Bato tokens. They burn the tokens, so the price goes up in theory. But that's this project. It's a totally automated artist that's just creating creating VQGAN art nonstop, and then having people vote on it. So here is like the most recent gallery, right? You can see this is all kind of like VQGAN style outputs, and yeah, you know, like it's kind of got a signature, but you know, if you ask me, this one's kind of cool. This is interesting. You know, you can kind of see it's like almost like a little girl and like a magical being helping her. You ask me, do I think this stuff is art? I don't know. It's like not my favorite. Like the aesthetic is kind of like you can tell where it came from, and you know it's automated, and like if it's just sitting and generating these things on random inputs, you know, I don't know. But at the end of the day, people are like, they're voting on what they like. I don't have this set up right now. One second. Get my wallet connected, so you can see what people are doing on the other side of it. Okay, so here's Botto. They have a leaderboard, and you know it's generating art. People vote on which art gets sold, and this is the one that's getting. So this one is the winner of I guess round 12. And let's see what's on auction right now. Next auction starts in 2 days. So this was the last thing that it made and sold on Super Rare, and it sold for $44,000, 13.37 ETH. This artwork that was generated by bot. No shade, but like, you know, it's the art piece is basically the whole thing, right? It's like this. It's like automatically creating itself. People are like voting on what it creates, and it just keeps creating things. It sold for $44,000, and that money goes back into the pool. The money is used. I think 75% or 80% of the funds are used to buy Botto on the market, burn it, so that the price of Botto goes up. But there are some cool things. You know, this is a bit nicer, I guess. But like I know how to make this. Is the thing is like, and I can make it. So I'm not going to spend that amount of money on it. So here's the 50th iteration of our the vaporwave butterfly. That such a beautiful and realistic map painting version of it. And I like this one a lot better. It's a bit more detailed. Yeah, it's got like it's got a background. It got a little weird with like the actual butterfly thing. It seems like it made this like sphinx-like structure here, and then there's like a butterfly-like dome off in the distance. But you know, it's got this like kind of like sci-fi feel to it that's really interesting. So so that was really cool. So this is how you kind of get into it. I think at the lowest level, but like still balancing kind of user friendliness. I would say this Wombo thing is like more on the user-friendly side, but less customizable. And then Botto is just like you're not really even making the art; you're just voting on it. And you can make all sorts of crazy stuff with this. I highly encourage that you just try inputting all the crazy things into this text prompt thing, because you never know what you're gonna get. I've found some stuff that like, you know, really blew my mind. And once you get into how this stuff kind of works and what it's capable of doing in terms of like motion and targeting its attention on specific things, you'll find that there are notebooks out there that can do even crazier stuff than just producing these like static images. And for example, like I had a notebook specifically made by an engineer for the piece that I made at the end of last year, the 3 pieces that I made that allow for kind of like this more advanced motion, where it's like generating multiple iteration, doing many iterations on a prompt, and then taking you kind of through Z space, like the 3-dimensional Z space. There's a sense of depth, there's a sense of fluidity, and all that stuff is not available in this notebook, but it is available in other notebooks. So, you know, once you kind of like get a sense of how these more basic notebooks work, then you know, you can start to kind of get into some of the more advanced notebooks, and I'm very happy to take people through some of the more advanced stuff once you get bored with this. But this will kind of keep you really interested, deeply interested for a couple weeks. There's like a week where like I was running like 5 generations, like 2 on my local machine, 2 in the cloud, like 1 on my laptop, like 1 on my iPad, like just running like the same thing with like different seeds, different additional kind of like tag along prompts and stuff, just to see what I get, and eventually you would land on something that you like, and then I would take that, do some post processing in like DaVinci Resolve or something, add some music, and then share it on Instagram or something. So yeah, this is kind of I guess the first kind of like the first level of getting into this stuff, and I know it seems kind of like a lot, but if you want to go back through this is going to be recorded. I'm going to share the recording, and also this is going to be a resource for you. You'll be able to kind of just go step by step how this stuff works, and with that, I'll open it for questions, and maybe we can talk about what else we want to. If we're interested, we can do another session on something else. But thank you for your time and attention.
Hey, Rad, thanks for sharing all that, preparing your. Definitely very straightforward with the walkthrough. Amazing how the little masterpiece realistic, such a beautiful detail thing changes it. Yeah. Curious what other keywords will do that. What
if you find a secret word?
Yeah. What is this like file structure that we're in? Is that like your stuff?
On the left side here?
On the left side, yeah.
Yeah, this is my Google Drive. So yeah, you connect up to your Google Drive. If you don't do the connect step at the very beginning, you can still run this, but it's not going to save any of your outputs when it disconnects. It's just going to be kind of like in temporary storage. And if you're doing any kind of long generation where you have to run this for a couple hours, Google Colab actually disconnects you after a certain amount of time. So you lose everything. So you do want to connect it to Google Drive. And yeah, this is your Google Drive. If you don't know, there's a kind of like a Linux backend there that you can go deeper into your Google Drive.
I feel like I'm like when I tried to import or connect my Google Drive, it's like I still have the file structure that looks like yours on the left. Like it's not my Google Drive.
I wonder if it's because we're working on the same notebook.
Yeah, so maybe I have to like duplicate this.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Yeah, go ahead and if you have this one open, it's probably just running it off of mine. So yeah, you want to duplicate it and then run your own, basically. It should work.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Any other questions or any other generations maybe we want to run? Try something else. Different style, different subject.
Have you ever tried to generate like yourself? Like have you like put in your name?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do that.
In the style of what? You know what we should do is we should take an image of you and we should have it painted in a different style. How about that?
I mean, sure, but I'm also curious, like, what it
comes out with.
Just like without any prompt. Yeah.
Okay, just the name.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't even think we should give it a style. I'm just curious, like, how names register as compared to like nouns. You know, or like,
yeah,
I know it's a noun, but you know what I mean.
Curious. No, I've never thought to put my name in, but we'll try yours.
Yeah. And I think it could be cool, like you could do like a version of like first name, middle name, like all the different like versions with all the different names. Let's see. Oh, I'm a shadow.
Shadow.
That makes sense. That's fair.
Ooh, nice Whaley. That's a good one. Yeah, you can see like the potential for using this stuff in like for just like environment creation, you know, backgrounds for characters, and it's really incredible what it can come up with. Yeah, so we'll let that one run. Let's try Wombo too. Let's see what Wombo thinks of you.
What style?
40 books.
What style do you want to do here? Festive?
No. I don't know.
Dark fantasy?
Yeah, dark fantasy. Kanye.
Let's try that. See what it comes up with.
Whoa.
Hot. This is a vibe.
New profile.
Wow.
Long hair, don't care.
Fascinating. I think it's interesting that it like, because I wonder with the other one if it will create like a human like image or you know like a figure, but like this one doesn't. Oh, that doesn't. I don't think so. What in the?
This one's going. It's kind of like
The textures.
Yeah, it's got some interesting textures in there.
Is it like a tiny person in a big bed?
That's kind of what I'm seeing.
Right.
Person maybe reading a book in bed, and the bed is made out of bunny ears.
Yeah. Wow. Again, long hair. I guess there's something. A sign I shouldn't cut off my hair. Fascinating.
Yeah, you can use it for another interesting way. We can use it is for style transfer. Let's see. Let's try like because you already mentioned Halle Berry. Let's use Halle Berry.
Yeah, please.
Let's do. Let's take a headshot right here.
Queen.
Okay, save Halle in my desktop. Okay, and then we're going. Do you want to see the end of this, or is it cool if we stop this one?
Yeah, you can stop it. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I feel like it's going in a straight.
Yeah.
Going in an even weirder direction. I don't know where that's going. Yeah.
Where do you see these saved steps in VQGAN?
Yeah. Your folder structure might look a little bit different from mine, but yeah, explore. It should be in the first the first code box that you run. It should say which folder it's doing in. Okay, so copy path. I'll do it here. See, painted by. Who do you want to see Halle Berry painted by?
I'm blanking on
Somebody out there. Shout out an artist.
Rothko.
Oh God, all right. That's an interesting one. Okay. Halle Berry painted by Rothko.
Just a block.
Let's see. So you'll see, it should show the image here, and I hope it works because, oh, the image might be too big. I'm hoping it's not. Oh, yeah, it's too big. What I'm gonna have to do is some quick image editing.
What's the resolution has to be at?
So when you input a photo, when you input a photo, it defaults to the resolution of your photo, and if that photo is huge, then it's going to be a huge resolution and most likely break Colab. So you have to be mindful when you're using an input image. It's going to default to however big that image is. So I'm just resizing it real quick. Call this Halle Small. here and re-upload Hallie Small. Okay, and then I'll just copy that path and go back up here. I'll hit play there. And then hopefully this runs. I'm not
Actually
sure.
do the run. How long have you been playing with this tool?
Damn it. I have been
Because she's
playing-
too pretty. She breaks it.
Come on. This is like, hold on. This has got to work. It's only 320. It's got to work. I wonder if I disconnect and reconnect. I might have to just restart my runtime. I've been playing with this since, good question, like end of the summer last year,
Mm.
I would say. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the first week was just getting these things to like run, learning how Colab works, and like Colab is kind of it's a particular kind of beast. You know, it's like very persnickety about like the order you run things in, but this one's kind of pretty easy to run. Other ones like some notebooks, like they give you just way too many things to configure. But let's see if this will run. But hopefully this guide will kind of cut down some of that time. Has anybody? I guess I should have asked at the beginning. Has anybody already been playing with this stuff? Maybe would be interested in seeing something more advanced, or maybe doing a session, another workshop, some other time. Maybe not. Oh, yeah.
I'd be curious like how it can get more advanced because this seemed pretty straightforward to me. Like I think you made it very clear, so I'm curious like what is considered more advanced.
Yeah, I would say more advanced is going to be like playing around with some of this stuff right here. So like weighting
Angle.
Yeah, angle, movement,
Zoom.
Mm.
There's a
So-
bunch of these fields that we like barely touched, huh?
Yeah.
Right.
So you'll see that you know, sometimes you'll once you start getting into this and you want to play with movement will actually change the way that the generation, you know, happens, because it's going to turn the image and then it's going to use that image to try and make something, and then as it's turning, it's going to kind of affect the way that it develops. So yeah, so that's one way where this gets kind of a bit more complex. Another place where it gets complex is like post-processing. So again, it depends on what you're trying to do with it. If you're trying to make cool videos that people can kind of like visualizers, for example, you'll start to get some particularity when if you're doing any animations like turning. If you like, for example, interpolate it, which is the process of adding additional frames to the generation to smooth out the animation. If it's turning in a particular way, you'll start to get these crazy kind of like stuttering effects that you have to correct for, and then that's a whole different thing that's like has nothing to do with this notebook. You have to learn how to basically correct for that stuff in post-processing. So that's another place where this gets advanced. Other notebooks, like I mentioned, have a bit more flexibility and functionality. So I have a notebook, for example, that can target specific areas. So say you want to create an image and you want the GAN to only look at a specific part of, oh, you can kind of see. Hold on, I'll shut up for a second. Let's go back.
Fascinating. Oh my god.
So it started, this was 10 iterations in, and this is it getting progressively more Rothko-y. Scary, isn't spooky?
It is very spooky.
But you can see it's maintaining the facial structure.
Yeah.
It's making it a bit more
Where is that?
blockier. Yeah.
No, no. No, she doesn't. Of course, I donated.
Yeah. And you can kind of see it fluctuates between like really intense red and like a really kind of soft and mushy red, and kind of goes in between. It's like not really sure, it hasn't really made up its mind about which direction it wants to take it in. Yeah. Oh wow. Oh, that one's really scary. Yeah. So that's gonna keep going. What was I saying? So you can do targeted generation. So another example of what you can do is you say you have an image and you only want it to do the GAN thing on a specific thing, like you have a picture, you have a body of somebody, and this is something that we're actually going to be doing for our characters. Um, so for those who don't know, this is not really announced yet, but we're making characters for everybody, like PFPs, but not like this mass generated version. The thing that we're doing is so I had my character player zero created by an artist in Tokyo last year, and um, over the last quarter or so, I taught him how to use VQGAN to help him just basically create a character. And we started with a model, and then we took VJ's character that he had kind of sketched out using just like Photoshop to put different items in different places for like a base character. And he used VQGAN to generate certain parts of the character and came out with VJ's character, which I don't have a copy of right now, but if you ping him, he'll show it to you. This kind of like spooky masked bio creature that like has part of its like cardiovascular system is powered by green technology. It's quite interesting. So that was just using this version of VQGAN, which is kind of a messy. Oh, so this is actually quite kind of interesting. I can't tell this is Halle Berry at all anymore, but like, you can kind of here we can.
It's like Halle Berry turned into like an old professor.
Yeah.
Like she like somehow got glasses.
We can make the video. So I'll make the video, let that run while I'm explaining this. So we use this VQGAN version to create VJ's character, and it's just kind of like a spray, like a scatter shot, spray and pray kind of method where like you're kind of hoping that it like hits the areas that you want, and then he has to do a lot of like manual cleanup afterwards. In that same time period, I had a notebook developed that can do very specifically targeted um, generations based on masking. So you can like take an image, you can mask a certain body part, an arm, like a limb, the head, the chest plate, something like that, and you can say, fishnets or like chainmail or um, you name it, like scale armor, lizard skin. You can basically target a certain body part, type in something that you want, and then it'll just run the generation on that body part. And what we want to do is create people's characters using kind of a hybrid of like, artist touch, somebody who's like, fixing a lot of the human details, because VQGAN's really bad at like fingers and like facial details and feet and like things kind of like that. But for kind of like the creative elements of like the character's clothing and stuff, we're going to let VQGAN do it. So you reach a certain level, you're going to be able to get one of these characters made. But that's another example of like where this can get more advanced. You can paint specific parts of the picture using AI, and the other stuff can be totally human generated. So that's one. The depth one that I was mentioning to you that I use my pieces to make my pieces. It's another example. So here's the Halle Berry turning into a Rothko professor. Yeah. So spooky stuff.
Truly, do you think this will convert her into like the crypto space? You think?
I wonder.
This is the new version of Bored Ape. Like this is for the
Rothko
highbrow
celebrities.
crypto elites.
Rothko celebs.
Rothko celebs. But at first she looks like a freaking goblin. Like she looks like one of the goblins from that like in Green Gods.
Yeah, it's spooky. And then like a mouth forms again.
The glasses are interesting. I don't know where that came from. I'm wondering if that's like it's like, I don't know, like her eyes just like expanded out.
Yeah, it's really spooky. You can also do like, if you want to get really weird with it, like body parts. What VQGAN is really, I really like VQGAN for underwater stuff. So for some of the generations when I first was like starting to use this, I would use like sea anemone or like coral, and it'll start to make like these organic shapes that look really good. So it does really well with like certain organic forms. So I would try those out if you have a chance to use some of this. Another thing I would try out is like very patterned, like kind of patterned stuff that. Sorry, I'm not describing this well, but like an example is like painted by Rothko. Like arabesque is something that I would use, or like rococo. Like rococo is you know, this style, like the like highly detailed painted ceilings. You know, this like kind of like Italian Renaissance style. It does really interesting generations if you pass rococo in it. So like, let's try. I don't know. Let's try like rococo, painted in rococo style. Let's see what it comes up with for Halle Berry. But anything with like a lot of patterns, like I was getting really into like sacred spaces, like sacred geometry. Arabesque is like another really good one. If you like look at any like the Grand Mosque, or like any like mosques around the world, oh god, that one's scary. Like mosques around the world, they all have like these really intricate kind of geometric patterns, and those are really good to feed into this kind of stuff. So there it goes. You can see kind of like the gold trim of the Rococo style kind of making its way in here. It's weird. They turned Halle Berry white, but I guess that's the.
There's no one painted in Rococo who's no.
Yeah, I guess that's just the world that we live in.
I don't know if that's fact, but just a hunch.
Yeah, so you're kind of getting like the gold leaf-ish kind of like vibe there. But again, still maintaining facial structure, respecting that it's a human face that it's using for the most part, but it's kind of getting weird at the edges. Yeah, and then also the colors are very distinct. Like this kind of like, not really aquamarine, but it's like a very faded kind of blue-green. Yeah, and then almost like a marble around the side. Yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of a crazy thing. It can do so many interesting things. Faces kind of tough, but like landscapes, aquascapes, space things. It can do all of those things really, really well, and it's its own interesting kind of way. And as you're playing with it, you're going to find words that you're going to use words that nobody else uses. So it's going to produce a style that maybe nobody else can make. So once you find certain prompts that you like, save them, and then try testing different pieces of them with different kind of like subject matters, different styles, and eventually you'll land on something that hopefully doesn't look like all the other kind of like plateau stuff that's getting automatically generated out there. Because I'm not so inspired by that stuff, but we're already starting to get some interesting stuff out of this.
Have you seen the error transport endpoint is not connected?
Where do you see that? Which section?
2 above. It's like the one where it's like path equals F working directory steps. It's like 2 above when you actually run the code.
Oh, this one right here. Path equals.
Yeah, path. Yeah.
What is the error that you're getting?
It says cannot remove content G drive depth.
I wonder if. So is your steps folder in the correct place?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's because I was like running from the link without copying the file, and now there's like something weird going on.
Okay.
Because I like
not able to generate anything at all.
No.
Try if you skip that and you just and skip the keyframes 1, 2, and do the run. Does it work?
Skip it? I mean, it's already like, yeah, it just says like these.
Oh, wow, this one's interesting.
Oh.
So I'm just gonna paste some of these other ones too.
So funny.
This Halle Berry is so scary. The first-
Mangled.
Yeah, it's like Silence of the Lambs, Halle Berry.
Those are really scary.
Yeah. Here, I'm just gonna save this one. So this is kind of what I like to do. Is as you're like going through this, I keep a log somewhere of like, you know, what is the starter image that I use? What is the prompt? What are the weights? What are the settings that I use? And then I'll just kind of like put the outputs. And like if I like a particular way something came out, I'm like, what's the seed? What was like the stuff that I added onto it? And then I'll go use that for another one. And this one is kind of interesting. It's like very abstract, but it's definitely got this Rococo style. You can definitely tell that it's got it's still kind of got the human kind of like in the background, this number 49 one, and then it's got kind of the gold, and then it's got this kind of like floral headpiece vibe. So that one's kind of cool. But you can see like every single one, it's a little bit different. It's like just trying to figure out what it is that you want. This one kind of looks like it's like melded her face with like a rabbit or a goat. Oh, this one's kind of nice too. Number 41. Yeah, that one's sick. Post that one too. So I hope that this has been pretty informative and it was somewhat easy to follow. It wasn't too confusing or overwhelming, but yeah, I highly encourage you guys to play around with this stuff. I will post this video and I will post the Figma in Machine Visions, which everybody should have access to. If you're making stuff, share your prompts, share your outputs, like anything that you love. Would love to see them. And if anybody else wants, I'll just continue to share the kind of interesting notebooks that I come across. And if we want, happy to do another one of these. Happy to jam and like kind of just see what we come up with. But yeah, AI art, GAN art is crazy. I can also. I've also even gone as far as like making my own kind of like GANs for very specific image databases that I have. So if people want to like go into like how do you actually create the models, like how do you collect a data set of images, how do you clean it up, how do you feed it into a GAN, how do you train the GAN, and then how do you use that GAN to output certain kinds of images. I can show you that. VQGAN is just one of many. There's StarGAN, there's StyleGAN. StyleGAN 3 just came out. I haven't even played with that one yet. They all produce different kinds of styles, and you can come up with all kinds of interesting stuff based on what you feed it, what it learns on the database that you give it. So I can run through techniques on how to collect data sets. I can run through techniques on how you train these things and how to get them working. So this space for like creativity, I'm barely like, I would never call myself an artist. I barely make art, but like this has been such a explosion for me in terms of like what, like just like it just tickles my brain in that particular way that like I don't know, it makes me feel connected. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy this tool, treat it almost, you know, treat it like it's something alive, because it really is. And yeah, I hope it comes up with some fun, interesting views of you know, the space between humans and artificial intelligence, just insights into that. But yeah, thanks again for your time. Thanks for joining. We went a little bit over, but I hope it's because people were interested and not because this was not that this was poorly run. I'm gonna cut this.
Thanks. This was
Thank you.
fun.